Welcome to TOOKY'S Sidebar, a book club for seekers of the sacred. I'm David.
I'm Gabe, and Ave Maria, grati plenia, Dominium tecunum, bendica tenuia, melubrius bendicus fructus finitus tuum. Or, as it's said in the proper classical Latin, is please subscribe in the name of Mother Mary to our Patreon, the Top Tugger list, at least at $5 per month.
Dear God. And I'm Capitalissimo, and I'm the Scourge of God. And this week, we're covering Gaston Nerval's Dr. Universalis.
Yeah, another novella, overnight novel, one might call it, or maybe even a micro novel. We're still debating.
I mean, it's not even overnight. It's kind of an afternoon.
Actually, it's not even an afternooner. It's.
I would say it's an afternoon.
No, it's a
delight.
2-hour delight, man. It's a 2-hour delight. You can read this in 2 hours.
That's true.
Term 80 pages, at least according to my Kindle device.
In print, it is 54 pages.
Actually, you know what? This is not an overnight novel. You know what this is? This is a one-shot novel.
You could read this over a pretty leisurely shift.
Yeah, excited for this one. And as Gabe mentioned on our Patreon for the Top Tuggers, there's some exclusive Gabe content there right now for anyone that is just thirsting for more after that intro.
Yeah, I'll go try to put at like a weekly or bi-weekly or bi-monthly at least a Gabe cut. You get a Patreon exclusive Gabe cut where I rant at you for at least 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, let's just say fortnightly. You know, no one knows what that means, but that's how often it comes out. And
I've been telling people we have a sometimesly show called Sidebar.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I guess let's get into it. If there's no nothing at the top, we've read it, we've thought about it, gentlemen. Generally, it's hard not to spoil too much because this is short, probably a shorter episode because of that. What do you make of someone that I'm sure many have not read this yet? Like, what is Dr. Universalis? Like the man on the street.
Hey, Mr. Man on the Street, how do you feel about reading a fictional hagiography of a real saint? How do you feel about that? And then he'll say, get the fuck away from me, bud. I don't know you, and I don't even know what half the words you just said mean.
This guy was in Passage Prize.
Oh, was he?
And then I'll say, yes. He wrote the Ungern Sternberg of Nob Hill,
which was famously misunderstood.
Famously misunderstood.
We got all three of us got filtered. Even I got filtered from that. It was a good one, but we got filtered.
Yeah, but this is a novella that switches back and forth between third perfect and epistolary.
Let's go! It's actually paleo.
It's what everybody loves. Everybody
and not only is it
loves
epistolary, it's paleo-epistolary. It's old school epistolary.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Because it's paper.
No,
it's just not email. That's the Gabe.
Gabe
delineation.
Okay. Paleo-epistolary is when it's actually
no. This is paleo as in before the printing press, dude. This is before the printing press. This is during the Crusades.
Oh,
that's not what. That's not usually where the cutoff is for the prefix paleo.
Yeah, well, it's like Paleozoic. It's like ancient. It's like this is from a literary standpoint. It's like basically where
it's Stone Age. Like this was you view the Fourth Crusade as the Stone Age.
This is scriptorium era, maybe.
Yeah,
and then we have press era.
Yeah,
post-press epistolary. Yes,
it just rolls right off.
I think that's a meaningless distinction, but thank you, Gabe. That it is a true one, but
because our fans are used to us doing neo-epistolary novels. So I just want to make it clear for our fans because we cover a lot of epistolary work.
Yeah, they're letters. They're letters from a son to his father, and they're formal letters. They're not doing the Poughkeepsie talk. They're doing Elfland, although it's set in the real world, of course.
And with the one true faith.
Yes, so it's the story of Albert Magnus and a pilgrimage in which he learns prudence. It would be my short description.
Mm-hmm. There's elements. One review I saw this called it like a pulp adventure or something, which is not. There's definitely elements of that. I don't know how I would summarize it in terms of genre, it's just historical fiction. To me, it's just sort of a solid historical fiction with like trying to be fast paced.
I would say it's more alternate history.
Alt history.
Yeah.
Alt history, historical fiction.
Why alt history? Alt history usually requires there to be some like major change that.
Oh, true. Yeah, like Hitler's still alive.
Well,
the South. Yeah, it's like this is what World War I would be like if the South won the Civil War.
Well,
it's not. This is not alt history.
Alternate history in a sense that paganism is far more lively in this version of history than it was historically.
What the fuck are you talking about?
The one island? Okay, that's a little bit of a spoiler. I guess we'll get to that. But yeah, okay. Under those strict terms, there's some alterations made to history, and it's got a lot of really great vocab.
Mm-hmm.
Like he really pulls out some of that in the era terminology. What's the one the charism? Like the charge of
charism.
Was it charism? The charge of your holy order. Their
and a paternosters, like their OC prayers, a sequence of words spoken as a prayer, or a magic formula. Yet again, we'll get to the paganism a little later. Yeah, paternoster is also used.
Yeah, and just about this adventure into the East, and so in this Crusades era. And for anyone that hasn't read it, well, Gabe, I don't know if you want to give any other high level thoughts.
It's a medieval midder. It depends how much of a Catholic history.
Such a Gabian sort of phrase.
I mean, in the best way possible. If you're a Catholic head, if you're both a Catholic head in terms of keeping the one true faith, and also in terms of historical fiction, the more hours you dump into Crusader Kings 3, while also listening to like that one YouTuber who's like justifies Crusades, even the fourth one, you're gonna love this. If you're a history nerd and a Paradox player, you're gonna love this.
I think I feel similarly in that it was one I wasn't nuts about it, but I do like it. I was never at any point unhappy reading it, but some of the characterization and some of the like minor description stuff I had a couple like quibbles with, but solid story. And definitely it seems like there's a lot of passion and interest in the era. So I guess I'll leave it at that for someone who hasn't read it. Yeah.
I like this. I liked it a lot. I thought that Gaston did a really good job holding the through line with the themes. The setup in each individual sort of scene is more like a fable and less like a more modern style of narrative. Because they are like, it's a morality tale as part of the hagiography, and it gets, and I'm going to actually use this word.
Oh, let's go,
Gabe.
Didactic. Let's go. I was about to say that too.
We win, guys. We won.
Yeah, there we go. Gabe got me to use the word.
Agentic didacticism.
Oh God, fucking die.
I didn't take this. It's not particularly an agentic work. It's very leisurely, actually.
That's not an antonym. Like leisurely is not the opposite of agentic.
It feels
anyways, it feels like it. Okay, all right. We have a vibes-based vocabulary, Gabe. Okay, but yeah. So the structure is a little more like a fable, and yeah. I mean, I found this to be a really tightly written, enjoyable read for sure.
Let's dive into it then. Anyone that hasn't read it, encourage you to check it out. We'll include the link. I think you got a good impression of us. You can listen on. Be warned, spoilers be beyond these roaming these seas.
Yeah, spoiler for what happened at the Fourth Crusade.
Yeah, the Fourth Crusade didn't turn out so good, bros. Bad news for you. Does anyone want to take the first crack at our intro?
All right. It opens in Padua, and Albert the Lesser, our protagonist, is a student at the university. He is he's quite religious, of course. He has a small life, making oddities for a jeweler in whose garret he lets. And he receives a letter due to his he's due to his membership in a noble family. So he's the lesser son of a house of nobles in the empire, and he gets a letter from the bishop who directs him to join a group of pilgrims who are going east. And so those pilgrims are Sir Dobron, a sort of acerbic, cynical knight.
This is Liam Neeson, basically.
Yeah, he cracks wise.
pick.
Like Sir Dobron continuously cracks wise. He gets all the laugh lines in the book, basically. Then there is Brother Thomas, who is a kind of severe Dominican. If you don't know what a Dominican looks like, they're the ones in all black, the most serious of the monastic orders, some might say. And the last one is Father Romuald, who is a big, fat, jolly monk who is a Trinitarian, which is a real order who they're charged with relieving people of bondage. So, like, they want to free all prisoners, like literally just all prisoners, whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're a bail bondsman, basically.
Right.
Yeah. This is sort of like his fallout mission briefing, right? Like, you're about to leave the bunker.
Yeah,
what
we're
do I
building a
gotta do?
team. Yeah. I should also say that the very opening section of the book is extremely important. It opens on Albert in a lecture on the virtues, and the professor says that prudence is the greatest of all the virtues, and it may not be prudence as merely a sort of a vulgar prudence. Let's see. The virtue which orders all the others. For example, martyrdom is never expedient, but it is always prudent. It may be said that prudence is interwoven with all the other virtues. Man can exercise no virtue without, at the same time, exercising prudence. At the same time, a man can exercise no vice without, at the same time, violating prudence. So if a man acts unjustly, he acts imprudently first, and so on. And so, and he says, I answer that there is a higher virtue still. Magnanimity is the source and summit of all virtues, their queen and crown. For prudence may be numbered first among the virtues for ordering the others. Magnanimity is presupposed by the recognition that virtue is to be pursued. If any virtue can only be exercised concurrently with prudence, how much more with magnanimity? So the idea that you must be pursuing always virtue, that is magnanimity. It's the thing that presupposes the others, and prudence being the one that allows you to enact it. So the rest of the story...
you need to be acting in good faith.
Yeah, well, yes, and the rest of the story is kind of about that, where Albert is at almost all times magnanimous. That's his like main quality in constantly seeking virtue no matter what. The way that the dialogue is written is frequently as dialogues, sort of thinking where there is a call and response between Albert and whoever his interlocutor is. And
these are like Socratic dialogues
like that.
of rhetoric.
And if I may add real quick, just a real quick, this all is predisposed by a quote actually by the historical Albert Magnus. It is taught by demons. It teaches of demons. It leads to demons. So that is a quote from the man himself that precedes everything we're about to be reading through. So just keep that in mind as well.
So the story is about Albert, who is nothing if not magnanimous, learning prudence. Because he begins quite naive.
Very trusting of his companions. He even there's the cute line where he's like, "Oh yeah, the Pope calls you." The bishop's messenger tells him, like, "Oh yeah, the Pope called you." He shows up to the meeting. He's like, "Oh, to the Pope? What does the Pope name me for?" Everyone laughs in his face. Yeah. Very trusting at the start.
Yeah. And
Pope's top guy.
Explains, and then it is explained to him that's like, well, the bishop receives orders from the archbishop, who receives orders from the Pope, and therefore, in this matter, the word of the bishop is the word of the pope. And he's like, I don't know if that makes sense, but okay.
But for some reason, you decided to phrase it that way. You told me, I guess, get me here faster.
Albert is a theory cell in a lot of ways in this part, right? Because he loves working the organs. He loves machinery. He's a tinkerer. He can make figurines walk in the jeweler. Even a jeweler tries to bestow some wisdom, some hard knock of life wisdom upon him. And he's a sincere theory cell that, a lot of theory, not a lot of praxis, basically, in the very first couple paragraphs.
Yep.
Yeah, and the mission is given here. Essentially, they're seeking artifacts,
relics,
ancient sacred relics in the East. And there's a specific one that they're sort of secretly searching. They can't let the powers is in Byzantium know what they're doing. Even other co-religionists, in theory, they're supposed to keep their mission secret from. Is the scourge of God, which in this fiction
this is not revealed to him at this point. It's not revealed to him for some time.
Later.
Yeah, it's not revealed to him for some
on the
time.
boat.
It is yet later. So
yeah.
So it is. So the way that it works, so the way that things go is they get on a boat from Padua, and Albert is a small Albert the Lesser, not just from his generation, but he is a short man, your boy really. He gets into some scuffles with the sailors because he's supposed to be sort of working on the ship in order to help pay for his passage. And so, and so he ends up trying to save face, right? And to do so, he participates in gambling.
The throwing of dice.
He loses at craps immediately, and humiliatingly, and then starts a fight with this sailor, this boy who's basically his age. Loses, but earns respect from having done so.
He throws a swing at the poor dude, and the dude actually respects that.
Yep.
Too bad Anthony's about to be dead. Spoiler.
Yeah. No shit.
It was all for naught.
So, Father Thomas ends up explaining to him that he is searching for the scourge that was used on Jesus prior to the crucifixion. Right, that is the relic that he is looking for. The remains, I guess, of the scourge. So, which if you don't know, it's a handle on like a cat of nine tails, like a bunch of leather whips with pieces of metal to drag through the flesh of the person who's being hit. So it's a pretty rough instrument, right? It's obviously soaked with the blood of Christ. So a powerful thing, and he says that, Attila the Hun had it and a General Belisarius had it. So it goes through this line of hands who would have possessed the scourge. And, it's a similar story. Gaston does mention the lance of Longinus in this, which is, of course, the spear of Saint Longinus, which pierced the side of Christ during his crucifixion, and out of which spilled water. And excuse me. Which has also been ascribed, to having been possessed by various martial figures in the past and contributed to their victories and glory. So I'm not entirely I'm not aware of any legends about the scourge itself. Are you guys at all?
No.
No, not in particular. I mean, when you were just speaking about it with the Cat of Nine Tails, I was just thinking, it's the final boss that every piglet's desires.
Oh my fucking
in
God.
terms of BDSM.
Shout out, friend of the show, Dan Baltic.
But the reason why it's called a scourge is because the lore master, Brother Thomas, he says, well, remember when the Huns tried to invade Rome, but the Pope met the Hun? I forget his name. Attila the Hun. Yeah, friend of the show, Attila the Hun. And he says, and Attila, of course, the famous line of Attila is, I am the scourge of God. Brother Thomas says, no, that's a mistranslation. He says, I have the scourge of God.
Yeah, so...
As it's a weapon.
Attila, secretly a Catholic.
And now they're worried the Mongols will get it, or who knows who's going to get hold of it and wreck them. So it's almost like within the theology here, it's like this is like a nuke. We got to find this thing. It's actually it's important in addition to being a sacred relic and a holy symbol.
It's a truth nuke.
It's a truke that we're going to drop on the Muslims. Morty, get on the boat. We're going to go get the scourge of Christ. So I guess Brother Thomas is a very Rick-like character, actually, if you have a deep reading of this book.
Yeah, and Father, what's his name? Father he's the Falstaff character. Like, yeah, he's a man of the cloth, but man, he loves shooting craps.
So
he loves shooting craps.
Yeah, I can see that. I do want to talk about the writing itself a bit.
Yeah,
that's sort of the blow by blow plot of it. The writing is, like you said earlier, Cap, there's the we're alternating between epistolary and this third person view. And the third person view has these sort of little breakouts where it'll do the rhetorical reflection on, like there's one or two where even this early on where Albert says something and it kind of corrects Albert from the narrator himself, saying, oh, actually Albert assumed Romuald was slothful because he was fat, but actually it was this, and
well, that's his internal thought. So he reminds himself not to judge a man. Here, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about because it took me a second. Yes, here we go.
Oh yeah, when he meets Father Rumbold, yeah.
Father Romuald was a hardy-looking, clean-shaven man, somewhere in middle-aged. He had warm brown eyes creased with laughter and jowls that wobbled when he spoke. His stubby, fat-fingered hands were shoved into the rope belt around his waist. Albert possessed enough self-knowledge to recognize that it was unjust of him to judge with immediate disapproval a fat religious on that basis alone, but not enough self-discipline to overcome this judgment, nor enough wisdom to recognize that this was more properly a matter of charity, not self-discipline. But he was still very young. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the narrator speaking on his thoughts. And just to say that's just the consistent through line with the dialogue itself takes that form. It does have this morality play style to it.
Yeah.
Description wise, because I'm going to bring it comes up later, but my only bone to pick with this, I'm not going to say my $5 word, because that's not actually what my
you don't want to say specificity.
I wouldn't know if that's the word I'd choose, but maybe.
The D word. D word.
There was like an odd focus on what was described, and there was like a delay in things being given specificity. Funny enough, like things would be described in a very plain way, and then later given more detail. It was like something I noticed as kind of consistent in the book, where they would say they went to get food down the street to get food. And like 2 pages later, you get a description of the street, and they would say they were eating bread, or they threw bread to pigeons, and things like that. So it's just like it backloads you as a reader, so you don't get that mental image earlier. And then it's sort of an order operations critique I have, which again, I'm not saying this is not wrong. This is just my nitpick.
Stylistically unusual, and you may have enjoyed it better in the opposite order.
Yeah, exactly. So that was my beef there. And then the POV itself, I think it was actually okay. I like I said, there was it providing the same view. Sometimes I felt a little bit odd when, like, the one you just read, Cap, like, at least to me, I read that as that's the narrator speaking it and saying that second part. I found that like a little bit repetitive with if their dialogue is in that style. And again, there's no right or wrong. This is fiction. Those two things were sort of like my niggling writing side issues throughout the whole book, was this sort of like POV sort of flinching into this dialogue style, like moral rhetoric. But it was like inconsistent with like how frequently it would do it, which not that you need to do that a lot, but that and just the description sort of lurches. But otherwise solid, right? You know, at a line by line level, it was solid. This is like, you know, workshop critique type stuff you'd throw at someone, not this is not readable or anything.
Sure. No, I would agree with you. I would say it is flinchy. I was going to say twitchy, but no, it's more flinchy than anything else. It doesn't hit you very hard in terms of its terms or its phrases or even its messages. Sometimes it can be very obvious in certain cases. Like Albert will start speaking of a theme, and by the end of that particular story, he will get his answer on what he was ruminating upon at that very 2 pages later.
Well, yeah, I mean,
so sometimes it can be a little bit on the nose.
What are you going to do? Right? Like,
true.
You know, it's 54 pages long. So the whole thing is just like beat after beat, him learning another aspect of what is prudent. Right? So, and there's various like, for example, at the end of the ship section, Brother Thomas convinces the captain to steer the ship into a storm rather than through some islands where there are likely to be pirates. Right?
Yeah.
And so
makes so much more sense by the end too. When I first read that, I was like, what the really, Brother Thomas? You seem like a smart guy.
Yeah, and it even says Albert swallowed hard and thought, but did not say that in his view, reason would conclude that pirates were likely to be more merciful than a storm because they had a material interest in the survival of their prisoners. He wished a few hours later that he had spoken aloud. And then you smash cut to they are wrecked on an island and most of the sailors
Everyone's
are
dead.
Yeah. So
he's...
Go ahead.
Oh no! Oh, go ahead. You could. What I'm going to say is probably going to bounce up what you're going to say.
Well, so the thing is that Brother Thomas, believed that they would have a better chance defying nature than dealing with human impediments, right? So he felt like it would be dominant. And in the following section, Brother Thomas gives his reason, and he has not learned. And he in fact teaches several things about the role of man in the world in his view that Albert and I think the reader are meant to take on board. But upon reflection, given that he has gotten them shipwrecked, there are questions, that one might ask some questions about his judgment.
and Albert kind of does, but in a very... He's looking to him as a authority figure because they get washed up on the island, and a fellow tradcast let him sleep in their barn, and their host literally has a pregnant wife, and he's sleeping there, and Albert's terrified, and he's thinking about the rain, and he says it's sprinkled with very good lines, like the raindrops falling like spear points, like upon his skin, and he just blurts out. Without thinking, he says, I now know why pagans make, key word here, this is where the alternate history comes in. I now know why pagans make sacrifices to the gods, to their gods. Yep. And Brother Thomas does not, he doesn't, admonish him for, saying something so blatantly,
and he actually, he says a great thing. He's like, first, do not first think that you do wrong by wishing to preserve your own flesh, Brother Thomas answered out of the dark. Next, consider that to judge oneself after the fact as having been in a position to yield to temptation, had it been offered, is far removed from sin, having neither matter nor consent of the will. You have learned something valuable about your character, and such knowledge invariably enriches its holder. Your broader point, Thomas continued, beginning to sound more animated, is interesting in its own right. Wherever he goes, man seeks dominion over nature. And for the most part, this is altogether righteous, for he is carrying out one of the first commands of God. Yet in so doing, he often falls into sin, and we see continual prescription against magic and sorcery throughout Scripture, where, Thomas asked, does man transgress in asserting his right to subdue the earth? And, like, that is a fucking fire paragraph, right? Like,
oh, absolutely.
Conceptually, unbelievably dense, communicates in a way that only that character communicates in the story, right? Now, he has a scholastic art discussion with Albert here, right? That sort of lays out the concepts that are dealt in the Ionian island section.
And that argument is very important because later on, near the end of that conversation, I think it's in here where they talk about, is it moral to use, dominion or making machines? Because yet again, remember, Albert is a tinkerer. One of his favorite things to do while praying is to work on the organ back at Padua. Right, and he sees it's very. He sees it. It's a holy thing to do. It's a holy thing to work and pray while working on the organ, because God made. If we make such pride and such holiness, working on this machinery, imagine what God feels working through us, right? So he sees it as a repetition of God's glory to be tinkering or to working on a fire pit. Because in one of his letters to his father, he talks about how much like how God sent the breaths of the saints to the world, I am blowing embers into the fire so that it can sustain itself. And that's how he justifies the lack of miracles in the quote-unquote modern day, his modern day. We no longer need miracles anymore because we can stand on our own 2 feet now without God blowing in more saints into the wind.
Well, that was said in conversation with Father Romuald. Yeah.
Yes. And Father Romuald actually says, the saints, he takes a much more individualistic view, Father Romuald. He says the saints of their own free will chose to be saints. They're not merely conduits of God. The saints of their own actions made the choice of their own. And he says every man is a saint of a sort, or something along those lines.
You're right that no man can save himself, but it is true, too, that no man can be saved against his will. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so Father Ramon is much more of an individualist to a certain degree, much more of his own free will. Well, Brother Thomas, if you notice, is an inversion of Albert. He likes to have the scholastic theory discussions.
You mean Romuald?
Father Romuald. Yeah, Father Romuald is much more down to earth and much more, much more shorter in his scholasticism, while Brother Thomas can talk to Albert in his chosen language.
That's right.
He knows the theory, so which is very interesting. Albert pays a lot of attention to what is scholastic and what is to the theory. He pays attention to what's the book, but he doesn't pay attention, or either he gets harmed trying to get in contact with the down-to-earth sentiments of the faith.
So let's see. So at the end of this section with Brother Thomas, he says, and I just thought that this was a this is a great one of the best paragraphs in the whole book. Not that it's a long book, but not to damn with faint praise either. In the country of Egypt, there stand vast edifices of stone, said Thomas, sounding now nothing like a university lecturer. Kings from before the time of Abraham built them as tombs for themselves, as part of their devotion to their gods. Which do you think is more foolish? To build a mountain great enough to pierce heaven and strong enough to last 10,000 years, or to suppose that such a thing could be done in vain? And this is the first sign, that there's something more going on with Brother Thomas, but also a powerful thing to consider, right, for people of faith in general, to consider about the works of man. And the relation to, let's say, other religions. So, yeah,
it's a very big foreshadowing part.
Yeah,
and the technology section, because it's basically a commentary on technology. Because Albert actually says, if a man, everything has their own role.
There is a section on technology, which is, Albert accidentally corners himself and is immediately is immediately like loses the point to Brother Thomas.
Yeah. Yeah, and the one I'm thinking of, it ends with him. Well, if a man learns to fly through philosophy instead of like a magic or instead of demons, it is still sinful because it is not God set nature in a sort of way where man is not supposed to fly. If you remember that part.
But that's what I'm saying. Argument. And then Brother Thomas immediately defeats the point. Like he immediately he immediately surrenders. Yeah, marvelously argued, but recall that in the lives of saints and Christ himself, the commandment pertaining to the elements are swept aside at whim. Do you think that iron exists in nature? It must be wrestled from the earth by great toil and tremendous fires. Even the animals man refashions to suit his will. Does the farmer sin when he chooses to put his strongest bull out to stud? Based selective breeding, Chad. So,
the birth of philosophy.
Yeah.
And because it also reflects on Albert, because Albert makes golems, right? He makes a little wooden figures that kind of walk.
Right.
Anyway,
the lower orders of creation. I think the whole Ionian Island section plays with this idea of
so the islanders
the natural environment.
Yeah, the islanders are so they. Yeah, to get back to the narrative, and it would have taken us less time to read this entire chapter than it is for us to talk about it, which is good. Like the ideas in Doctor Universalis are written very densely. So
actually, some would say this is the raft played straight.
The islanders are poor. The island has shit soil that can't grow anything. They have some. I think they say the islanders managed to keep some evil-looking chickens and a single goat.
Yeah, evil chickens.
Yeah, they're just like horribly malnourished. The only thing they get to eat is fish. Okay, and when their host's child is born, he is sickly, and the islanders plan to sacrifice the child to expose him on a hillside, which is a form of human sacrifice. And they, of course, the team, right? Sir Dobron, Brother Thomas, Father Romuald will and Albert save the child and flee the island, right? They get to the boats, and Father Dobron throws money onto the dock, and he's like, for your boat, you heathens. Like, I'm not going to steal this from you even. And this is sort of, let's see, I will find it. So the priest who is on the native priest on the island says, maybe it is best that you leave, but do you think you do rightly? You think you will save that? Do you think you will save that child, or even yourselves? See, young Albert, what it is for which you are acting so imprudently. Specifically says that it was imprudent of Albert to not allow them to sacrifice this child. Albert paused, studied the infant closely for the first time. His skin was a frightful color, all yellow with purple blotches. He was too weak to do anything but utter a continual little keening noise. And so, they leave, and the final section of this is, Father Romuald nodded gravely, and baptized the infant under the name of Otho. That was all they could do for him. Albert held him close to his breast, trying in vain to keep him warm. It was terrible to listen to little Otho's cries, but more terrible still when they ceased, and it was a frozen parcel they buried when next they came to land. And so the question is, was this in fact imprudent? Right? Was it imprudent of them to forsake their hosts and to fight against this practice on the island? And so you have this, you sort of have this argument where Albert begins the chapter understanding why, like saying that he understands why pagans do things, and then sort of immediately is face to face with a surviving pagan practice that he finds abhorrent, despite the extremity of the circumstances of the people who are doing it. And he chooses what, maybe in the conventional, right, in the conventional understanding of prudence, he does an imprudent thing, but it was not expedient, but perhaps it really was prudent because it was guided by virtue. Right.
Yeah, it's a contrast of the concepts because even the first sermon or their teacher, the college teacher, discusses the contrast in the concept of
between prudence and expediency. Right.
Yeah, it's not the mere prudence of a merchant. That's merely practical. Prudence is actually the engine of virtue.
Yep.
Because even say the baby's not going to die, you're not even going to give him a baptism. Like the boy needs a baptism at the very least, even if he's destined to die. Was one of their callbacks or one of their replies to Father Apollos. His name is literally a Greek god too. It's Apollo.
Oh, I missed that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you would leave him on, and you would allow him to die unbaptized, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, like that's a very strong chapter for me. Let's see, the next section. Was
letter.
So the next section was a letter about some time that they after they had come ashore.
There's a simpleton, or whatever they call people that are mentally deficient. What's the phrase that special?
I mean, he was a cripple. I mean, like he was all fucked up. He
is a misshapen incel freak for all intents and purposes.
He's got like 6 fingers on one hand, a club foot, can't walk, massive, like, weird elephant man face.
Completely Norwooded.
God. Yeah. And if that wasn't bad enough, he's bald.
There's a line about in heaven, even the lame can walk, right? So I guess there's
Oh, so there, yeah, so yeah, the lame can walk is in heaven, sir. Even the lame can walk, and so he basically Albert loses a dialogue to a retard, and who is of great faith, and ultimately, even though perhaps he doesn't have, it sort of shows greater magnanimity and prudence than Albert, right? This crippled man, and so
who wants to be a monk? By the way, he's LARPing a monk, but the monks
the abbot won't let him become a monk because he's not like traditionally speaking. You can't receive holy orders if you're not of sound mind and body. Like you can't be a cripple who becomes a priest, right? Or a monk. Right, obviously, you wouldn't have taken holy orders. These are monks, not priests. But, typically you can't. So, it's pretty standard, basically.
Yeah. He poor Albert. He dumps all his skill points to repair, but none in speech because he just constantly loses his speech.
Well, he's learning something every single time. So the next section is Constantinople. They show themselves to the bishop.
Bishop's kind of a
there's
cunt, a long, justifiably so. He's playing politics with them.
Yeah, Bishop Wilhelm, and Albert recognizes him because Albert is actually a royal, a low royal. He's ethnically Bavarian, actually.
That actually was one thing I was unsure when I was first reading, because he mentions his father had some relation to the emperor, and I was like, then I forgot. I was like, oh, the Holy Roman Emperor must be what he meant. Like partway through,
right.
For some reason, I thought he had some family in Byzantium, but that it became clear once we got here, along with the year as well. That was the other thing, because there's no year front, I don't think. And so it's like around here, you're like, oh, okay, this is around the time of the Fourth Crusade. Based on context clues, you get about
Constantinople got sacked.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit of salt, one might say, about that still. And
yeah, and now it's a papist puppet state now, and all the Greek Orthodox of the proletariat are pissed off because after you leave the shade of the Hagia Sophia, because it opens up, and Brother Thomas and him and Albert's so excited to see Constantinople. And he talks about the red bricks, and he makes Brother Thomas give him a lore dump on how the bricks are made. Yeah, and he's so excited. So he's in awe. He's starstruck. He's like, "Oh my God, this is Constantinople," you know. But as soon as you get out, he literally says, "Out of the shade of the Sophia, you go to see the broken cobbled streets." He portrays it like the medieval equivalent of a third world country. Everything is dusty and run down. The bricks on the roads are broken.
There's the implication there's some USAID money too, like it's like keeping this going, because he's talking about how as a bishop he has to decide where supplies go or keep people fed.
He talks about Jesus feeding the 5,000, and he's like, I do that 200 times a day because if it doesn't, then blood will run in the streets. I don't have time for you vagrants.
These people are going to eat each other
in here, and
This is where Father Rumbold shines a little bit, because Father Rumbold teaches Albert practical prudence. Because Father says, "Listen, Albert, if you were Pope, not to scare you, but if you were Pope, who would you choose to be? If you're in charge of a position of command, who would you choose?" And obviously, Albert, being the innocent theory cell, says, "Oh, obviously the most virtuous." Of course, and Father Rumbold basically says to him, "Well, yeah, but you got to also think of practical leadership.
The first argument is only one man in history has ever put virtue first, and even as Pope, you do not have authority over him." It's like,
the authority goes the other way around. You're dealing with a fallen world, and so to deal with a fallen thing, you have to be able to interact with fallen things and to act in certain fallen ways in order to interact with fallen things. And he says, a quote. Albert says, "Oh well, the gospel says we must be
wise as serpents, but simple as doves." But not exactly, and not but. Our Lord did not see these qualities as being in opposition," said Father Rumbold. We sin by neglecting either. So, yeah.
Yeah, he hits him with the "but actually" nerd emoji. Basically, you have to have the dark triad. You have to mix your wholesome Chungus wife guy while also being a dark triad as well. You have to mix the two together. And so he justifies, Bishop Wilhelm's kind of shitty bureaucrat behavior by saying, "Listen, there's a law on his plate, and you to deal with a fallen world, he must act in fallen ways to a certain degree. But he won't counter signal us." Dorderic, or the knight, says he won't necessarily help us. Dobron with the mustache made out of flesh, because he described his description of the character is very good. Because Dobron, he has a beard except around his lips and around his chin, so it looks like he has white fangs around his face. It's a very interesting way to describe his facial features. But Dobron's he won't counter signal us, and they're basically Wilhelm is playing politics. Basically, he's using them as basically puppets, or as a false flag attack. The Orthodox terrorists within Constantinople. Because Albert goes to walk around the market stalls, or the market center, with Father Rumbold, and they're looking at old statues. And Father Rumbold's like, you notice this? You see, the Crusaders did this because this is when the Venetians financed an attack via the Fourth Crusade on Constantinople. And now it's a puppet state, basically, of the Catholic. It's a papist puppet state, basically. And they look at all the people, and all the people, they look down. They don't look happy, because he talks about back in Padua. He says, you see people Padua. Back in Padua, you see people talking. Padua. You see merchants. You'd see merchants selling their wares, laughing, talking, gossiping. There's nothing of that there. People walk down. They don't make eye contact with each other.
It's very, very. It
feels like a war zone.
In the shadows watching them after their meeting, basically, I think, or once they get in their hotel or their inn. It's clearly an unfriendly
there are people looking at them with undisguised hostility.
Understandable.
As Latins, because they're Latins. Because
the more
they're
things
Latins,
change,
right?
the more they stay the same.
And Father asks him. Yeah, and Father Rumbold, he asks Albert, he's like, "Are these the children of God?" And he basically tells him to attend a Greek Lives Matter riot for all intents and purposes, a GLM riot.
Yeah,
and
Brilliant.
basically,
Brilliant.
yes, as the one poor little, what you doing, Latin boy? Right? He goes up there to GLM.
Supporting you guys' rights. I think it's really important. You know.
I'm on your side.
And then Albert gets his head.
He doesn't understand. Like, he hears the word Latins being said a lot, but doesn't understand anything because his Greek is shit. Right. The one very consistent thing about this is that his Greek is trash. So
walks into a crowd.
In any case, it turns into a riot. You get some wisdom of crowds talk in here, and he is saved by a Greek in a carriage.
A carriage.
Yep.
And shoulders, and the last thing he sees after getting like a crowd stomped, basically, the last thing he sees as he's being pulled out of the carriage, his feet still dangling, is he sees one of the horses stomp on one of the people's heads. One of them gets hit with
he's
a
dragged in to meet the princess. And the first meeting, she's he has some wine. It even says it's shitty wine. Like, they both make a sour face because it's such garbage wine.
Everything is everything is decaying around her, right? So she is. So she's a Byzantine princess. She's in this dilapidated palace. It's just sort of nothing, but she's just surrounded in decay. It's the Dark Souls of settings. Like, it's the gayest thing.
It's Greek blood,
but it's just absolutely falling down around her. They're sitting on moldering cushions. The chair is sat on top of a Roman mosaic that's chipped and fucked up, and
the servants are all pissed off and cranky and dilapidated. And the princess, the quote-unquote princess, is already post-wall.
Older than
as
his
Albert
mother.
says, she looks older than my mother.
Yeah.
So, and she has this horrible alchemist eunuch working for her.
I mean,
trying to
how different is it from today? Right? You got e-girls.
How different
with their
is it from
simps
today?
Yeah. Oh wait. And that eunuch's name, Milo Yiannopoulos.
That eunuch was Milo Yiannopoulos.
The initial conversation.
Albert Einstein.
It is a Greek last name.
It is.
Yeah.
That's true.
But they have a brief conversation, and then she leads him to the cuck chamber, and threatens him with torture, and he just immediately folds. Might be too harsh.
Well, tastefully threatens him with torture.
What was he supposed to do? Get tortured?
Put up a little bit, make him work for it.
Well, no. So, but no, he does. Remember, because he spams he spams patent nosters. Because he just says he spams prayers basically at her. Because he says I said enough pater nosters to fill up an hour or two. So he just spamming Latin. He's just theory selling this poor girl. He's the gamer boyfriend dumping Dark Souls lore on his poor cosplaying girlfriend for all intents and purposes, right? And that's what's happening. And I like the way he's described because again the place is crumbling, the wood's chipped, and she runs her fingers on the burnt wood. And she's subtly, tastefully threatening him.
So she says a few things here that are interesting. So they have sort of a parallel conversation where she says leading questions, and he says something that digs him deeper. Right? He doesn't realize it. He thinks they're just talking, and he there's sort of comes to a realization that he is being threatened eventually, and.
From the very first sentence, too, because she says, what would you like to toast to?
So he says,
Albert.
Right, the Universal Church. The boldness.
The one and true Universal Church.
Says the princess with the genteel laugh. So I will. All right, a Latin answer again. So I will put to you a Latin question. What is cleverness? That is, what distinguishes a clever man from a fool? And Albert answers, the ability to understand consequences, how one thing follows from another in the chain of cause and effect. Very good, the princess approved. Walk with me, young Latin. And so she discusses how a man of great cleverness can see ahead of whatever road he might choose, only the forest of danger. And the more choices he has to make, the more roads he must consider. And so she leads him. Her whole discussion is about foresight and seeing ahead. And she ultimately says, as she's looking, as you said, running her fingers absently over the scorch-marked table, she says, I never enjoy conversing with fools. They never understand what's happening. Not really. In direct, immediate ways, it must be demonstrated to them. So I'm always forced to have Nicholas, by such demonstrations, compel them to answer my questions. Now, with a clever man, things go much smoother. He can easily grasp the consequences of the choice before him. He does not need to see his flesh blister and bubble away in order to understand that it can happen. And you, young Albertus, are very clever indeed. And so he with the threats, he does not get tortured, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm being overly harsh on him. Yeah, and there's even description of the jars, rose and jars, alembics, and all these little cauldrons with like burnt shit around, like signaling that she's making Greek fire, God knows what kind of torture chemicals to use on him. So they definitely have the capability to do some pretty extreme stuff to him if he deviates. But and not that it matters anyway, because they get all the rest of the guys. Like, we come around after that scene, and all the boys are in jail together now in the dungeon of the princess.
In the chemical goon.
My chemical goon cave.
No, the chemical troon room. That's where he gets.
So so the rest of the squad gets, had also been apprehended and brought in. And they all get locked in this room together. And quickly they use the chemicals that are in there to weaken the bars, break out, and everyone but Father Romwald, who's too fucking fat.
They use Quicksilver. I looked this shit up, but it is a real thing. Like, you can make an amalgam.
Yeah, it's like using gallium on basically
anything. Yeah. But I watched some fun YouTube videos of people demonstrating.
Yeah,
it. Would recommend.
Yep,
I have to play with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Albert made sure to tag alchemy at his starting build.
And so they break out and go to the bishop, and the bishop rescues Father Romwald.
What was the significance?
Apprehends
of that,
the princess.
That was one thing I had scratched in my head. Like, why is Father Romwald being a fat fuck?
Yeah,
well, he was always fat.
He couldn't get out the he couldn't get out the window.
Yeah,
he was too fat to fit.
But it was like such an extra element of the story. I was like scratching my head, just like what was the reasoning? Like, it must be a moral to it.
Well, I think maybe it's I think it's foreshadowing for what Father Romwald does to himself later.
That's a good read.
And also, the knight says,
his fate to be incarcerated.
Yeah. And the thing is, when they're escaping, the knight, he kills like 2 guards, and Albert's like, "You just killed those 2 dudes," and the guy's like, "Ah, they're schismatics."
Like, don't worry about it. They were probably schismatics. Yeah.
And I gotta say, listen, I think, Mr. Gaston Nerval, I have to say, I think some Doge money was lining his pockets. This is pure Venetian Catholic propaganda right here. How it's portraying the Greeks. Like 5 Venetian gold marks have been added to your account.
So the let's see here.
I mean, that's pretty much the end of they're all reunited.
Well, so hold on. So two more things. The princess, as punishment, was blinded, right? So
yeah, very common during the Byzantine era, by the way.
It goes back to her entire conversation about foresight and seeing the paths ahead, right? And if she could have used them had they not escaped, in such a way as to destroy the Latin dominance of the city, but did not see the path where they could break out using their own alchemical knowledge from this lab. And furthermore, Albert has realized how the princess found him. And it was the bishop's own manipulations.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it was a false
well,
flag.
so no, he was the bishop leaks information to the princess. Princess captures him, not realizing where the information came from, and the bishop, has fallen into his cunning
chicken
trap.
feed in spy parlance.
Just as planned.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he used Albert as bait. And
Greek mysticism loses to Latin faction logic. He uses Latin faction logic to get us.
Then he vision cucks her too.
So
the last thing she sees is his stupid face.
Last thing
Albert's
she
face,
sees is him.
Oh, no, baby.
Dumb little shit. You fucking twink.
But what was the plan exactly? Because they're not high ups. They're not like highly official. She doesn't have the Pope in custody. Like, how is that going to start?
She was going to use
checkmate?
them to basically incite a political uprising. Like she was going to
a GL
right, exactly.
a GLM riot.
Anyway, the next section, Father Romuald trades his own freedom for 10 Christians from the harem of the Sultan, from the dungeons of the Sultan.
Oh, this was great too.
No fear.
Yeah, have care, infidel, or I shall have you crucified from the tallest spire in Baghdad. To which Father Romuald answered, I can imagine no greater blessing than to see a cross atop it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Sultan
get
gets
wrecked.
like
That was so good.
Gets pissed off, but then laughs and says, I'll give you 10 people of your choosing if you go to my prison. And Father's like, bet. So
See, good posting was always an art that would get you far in the world, get you out of a sticky situation.
Exactly. Yeah, Father Romuald, you were a real one, an OG.
You would have been a great Wojak Soyjak dialogue writer.
Sultan, you have already lost, for I have depicted Muhammad as a Soyjak.
Well, because the way when you look back at it, because the Muslim says, declare your faith to the Prophet Muhammad, and he's like, declare you to the Lord Jesus Christ. It's good. It's like the Sultan already knew he wanted to banter. He knew it was kind of like it was a conversation battle. It was like it was an opening gambit. He knew this was going to happen. It was a religious rap battle, basically. It was a negotiation tactic. From the jump, and basically this is near the end because after they dump Father, they dump him for the free 10 prisoners, but they don't take with them. By the way, they just let them walk.
They're going on
to
look for artifacts, sacred whatever Catholics. Yeah.
And by the way, it was so funny because the Sultan's like, "Oh, please take these relics."
Oh yeah, he was also like, "Yeah, you're fine. You're
you.
fine to do that. Don't be spies though, otherwise, because fuck you. I'll fuck you up real bad if you're a spy. But if you're just going to take these Christian relics, then you're saving me the trouble. Honestly, I don't need a bunch of pilgrims wandering around. So."
Yeah, I'm tired of these Christian tourists clogging up all the cafes near the Sultan.
So let's see. So we are in room, and they are the three remaining members of the squad are sort of talking to all of these hermits, trying to find the scourge. They've tracked it to the cult of Joshua the Cappadocian, and
whoa! You're skipping the cuck stuff.
Oh no,
Albert and Berdobran, their conversation.
Yeah, Dahlgren. Yeah, Dahlgren's getting he's getting that sweet.
Yeah, he was hanging out with the merchants
Muslim
and the little dancing girls.
It's called Sarah Sissy.
Sarah Sissy.
Yeah, Sarah Sissy. Sarah Sissy got me acting unwise and unlatinly. Yeah, because he hears them. He hears them banging at night, and he can't sleep in peace because the unintentional boner in his pants is keeping him awake.
Yeah.
And he's like, Dolbrin, why are you such a hedonist? And he realizes that Dolbrin, he's scared to become old. It's like he's relishing in this delights in his hedonism, but in his heart of hearts, he wants to be virtuous. He's yearning for something more and deeper. He's a typical self-reflective hedonist because he looks in his eyes, and at the end when finally Albert lands the truth nuke on someone else, Dolbrin says,
"You are brave
God
for the
bless
same
you,"
reason that you
along
sin."
those
Is
lines
Albert
to
saying it to Dobron because you hate the thought of growing old, and that goes right back to this prudence concept and this first intentions from
Father Romuald told me once that no one can hold sin and virtue together in his heart forever. I hope your courage wins out in the end. Sir Dobron did not speak for a long time, but when he did, it was just to say, "God bless you, young Albert," in a gentle voice.
I keep being young, because he kind of understands, or he accepts that he's old now. He's like that. He's that peaked in high school, like jock, basically, but in knight terms. Basically.
Well, I think he's allowed to get the Sarah Sissy for the record.
Is it
I don't think he's
fought
under
in
any
the
oath of
Crusades or no?
celibacy or anything.
I mean, he literally.
Well, he's like, hey,
No,
they're heathens anyway.
no,
They're heathens
because-
anyways.
Albert says, "Is it in the charism of your order to behave thus?" And Sir Dobron says, "Of course not." So it's like obviously not.
Well, there's thus and there's thus, right? Like, let's define what thus is.
Yeah, depends on what the definition of is.
Heathen hussy doesn't. Yeah. Hey, heathen hussy's going to go to hell anyway, so I'm doing the world a favor. He kind of says something like that. Is it confirmed he fought in the Crusades? Is he a Crusader?
Yes,
I don't. He's a Knight
Templar. Yeah, and he also he
really did
just completely rocks. Two dudes with no sweat.
Right? Oh, the guards, yeah.
In the one scene that we see him fight.
Together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So he really did peak in high school because there's no more Crusades now. So that's why he's so happy.
Oh, yeah, because
he just likes fighting.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's no more Crusades anymore. Because this is after the Fourth Crusade, and so he has nothing else to do. So he's kind of glad he's back in the East. He's glad to finally be doing something again.
Born too early for World War II. Born too late for Crusade. The Crusades. What do I do?
Yeah. For the second. Yeah. For the fifth. Neo Crusades. Yeah.
I think Gabe, you're about to do the Hermit arc. I can do the Hermit arc. Yeah, then we're
go for it.
Yeah. Poor Dobrin. You would have loved that.
He would have loved the Highway to Hell. Dobron and his A10, just birding Baghdadis.
Oh, dude, he would be Eric Prince's top guy.
Anyway, so they go into, they find a hermit, or I think there's like a bit of a time jump where they explore for a while and they're trying to look for the artifacts. They hunt one. They hunt one down. They go to this hermit cave, and they talk about how he stinks. His cave stinks.
It's a fucking hermit, man.
Yeah, imagine the smell.
Imagine the smell.
And this, I guess, this is still the same part of it's Turkey, I guess. This is Rum.
No, this is Ruma, or R-U-M. Yeah, it's east of Ankara. It has to
be. They do a prayer with him, and he's like does this like head bashing motion, possibly an autist, while they pray. And I forget the exact order of events. Basically, Thomas is like, Brother Thomas is like, we're gonna steal this shit when he's out, bro. Like we're just gonna take it. And they debate. Albert actually gives him pushback. Right, like verbally, but then he goes out and gets it anyway.
Well, no, because Thomas is like, actually, worshiping of wandering people. He says a particular name of the wanderer, like a Cappadocian.
Joshua the Cappadocian.
Of wandering. Yeah, it was actually illegal, made illegal in 1066. So it's okay to steal from him. Actually,
yeah, here we go.
He goes.
He will not be harmed. Just led away, just for a while. We must be certain we have found it. You see how the condition thing was kept. Holy things should be treated with greater care. His part in the story is at an end. It just seems wrong. Yeah, so you definitely the moral dubiousness is increasing. He gets it, and then this part actually felt a little sudden to me. He gets the artifact, and it's just the metal points at this point. But regardless, they go out, and then Brother Thomas starts
the way that
ritual.
The way that the scourge exists, now, is as just the handle with all of the barbs and hooks from the ends of the leather having been hammered into the handle to keep it all together.
The leather has broken down,
but all the leather is gone.
It's just a small baby bitch club. I assume it's a very small club at this point.
Just like a rod, just the handle of it. So, sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's basically a blackjack at this point.
Blackjack is not. That's not what that is.
We sort of have our Judge Holden moment. Maybe this is where he jumps the shark out of being Rick, because Rick is always wholesome in the end. He always has his turnaround moment. But here, Brother Thomas starts speaking of how God spoke to Balaam the heathen, and talking about. I'm trying to find the quote. Where is it? There's a blood ritual. Brother Tom. Sorry, go ahead.
If
you have it.
No, while you're searching for it, I just want to say, you know what this reminds me of? This particular moment, this like really whiplash fake out. It reminds me of the friend of the show Arbogast story in Bizarre Times.
Yeah,
the mask one, or the smiling faces,
a little bit.
Or something like this.
Yeah, I see that.
Remember, like a person who's knowledgeable about esoteric things leads our young, impressionable young chud into like a place of a sacred relic, turns around, guts him.
Yeah, that's it. I found the turnaround line here. He says, so he has, this is Brother Thomas saying, "You will be of assistance, though of course it would be much better with a girl. There's such meager power in the blood of a male." This is as he's like drawn some blood. But the blood calls out to blood.
He like nicked his femoral artery. Yeah, he like nicks his femoral artery perfectly.
Yeah.
Eroticus predatory.
And then what is it? How does he defeat him? I actually don't remember that.
Well, actually, but no. But remember, he says, as he says this he gives a little philosophy spiel. He does the, Helios, come to me, we could be one. He does the Deus Ex end boss speech. Mm-hmm. He's like, we will do with thy will. We will actually will this thing. Here, kneel, Albert, and try to do a witch-rule. And Albert's like, yeah, we're going to do God's will, right? And
it's just,
you can imagine the meme where the Thomas
Star
stares
Wars
at him.
Prequel. We're going to do God's will, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because Albert's like, yeah, I'm totally down with this. We're gonna do God's will now. Like, he assumes this rituals to like help with God. He thinks this is we're going like own the pagans now or something like that. But he's like, damn it, Albert, he had such potential,
and then he whacks him. Beat Brother Thomas, but he doesn't. He just fades to darkness, and then Sir Dobron comes back and gets him.
Well, no. Well, he does. Do you remember the hermit?
Well, that's
comes
the story
back
he
and
learns in the next chapter. But I didn't know if that was true. So the hermit did save the day.
Yeah, I think it's implied that it was Dobron actually, because the hermit does not seem to be
capable of speech either. Or possible.
Yeah.
Well, it's a miracle thing. He's a holy hermit, so I can kind of see God working through that way.
Because Albert had just sort of like uplifted him, and then Dobron returns, and holy smiting occurs, and then it's like, all right,
Dobron decides to not participate. Yeah, he defects to Albert, who is the one who who begins the story as a learner of virtue and ends it as an instructor and instantiator of virtue.
And they still pin it on the hermit, though. I mean, maybe he did learn something from Brother Thomas.
Well, true. Yeah. He learns political prudence. But he sees a vision of Mother Mary, or Holy Mother Mary, and that's what I kind of still chewing on that, because he says he's disappointed, or he finds it lackluster.
Well, he's disappointed in himself.
He actually doesn't.
He asked for was the perception
wisdom.
of Solomon, right? And he realized that he should have asked for her son.
Ask for Jesus. Yeah.
But he realized that after he got the perception of Solomon. Yeah, and it's also the same
and this
section
is also like
where
what
Brother Thomas has previously referenced, Solomonic demonology.
Mm-hmm.
He has previously referenced the Ars Goetia, or Lesser Key of Solomon, and his binding of spirits,
and
of the
also
air.
about
Yeah.
the concept of regrets. And don't forget the regrets thing, because he only regrets in past tense, and Thomas also discusses him about the illogical fallacies of the concept of regretting past actions, back in the pagan island arc. So it's only with the wisdom he now knows. He now knows what he could have better wished for.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful little petty irony.
And then we sort of, we fast forward, big time skip, and Albert is back in Padua, doing. He has just received his holy orders, and he is performing his it's in Laungen. Yeah, so he's back in the East. His parents are there. He is performing his first mass as a Dominican, and is the sort of the last line in the book is the transubstantiation. So before his eyes and yet invisible to them, a miracle occurred. At his word, yes, but not because of any virtue or secret knowledge he possessed. The laws of nature were transcended, fulfilled by their author, at whose command he performed the prescribed ritual. The Holy Grail shone resplendent before him, enthroned upon the altar, winged by ranks of gleaming candles, and he gazed in awe at the body of Christ, presented in his own upraised hands to the ringing of bells.
It's a beautiful little ending.
Yeah. So the consecration of the host, the transubstantiation, and sort of the thematic wholeness of the story is in that final line, is the most important part and purpose of the Mass.
It's kind of in contrast to a lot of certain Brother Thomas's earlier talk about the lower orders,
exactly.
Lower orders, and said this is like a union of all levels. So yeah, it's a great ending.
Yeah, it's a synthesis, and of course he chose to be a Dominican, which was Brother Thomas's order.
Yeah, I heard they had an opening. What can I say?
Heard they had an opening. Heard you guys got an opening.
And to be clear, Dominicans aren't the brown people that work the bodegas in New York.
It's a different kind.
Yeah, before those kind of Dominicans were created.
Before Republica Dominica. So.
Before the vast miscegenation in South America.
Dominicans, still the best people on the island. Still the best people on the island of Hispaniola. So.
Actually, my opinion of his work, of this piece, kind of it goes up 2 points in my mental tier list that one day I will release as a Gabe cut. I think you had to read this twice. I think it's a very short book. You should read this twice.
I think it really does.
I think it really does
benefit from a second reading. I read it in February, and I reread it again this morning to be fresh, and it's I like it. I like it more on the second read. I really like this one. It's cheap as hell. Like, pick this up on Amazon. Big recommend.
Yeah, I think I've sweetened on it too. There's something about the second read really does add something, because talking through it, I'm making all these connections. It's hinted at more clearly than I'd initially thought.
Thematically, it's extremely tight. The density, it's written with a really satisfying kind of density to me, and I think it also really hit the historical fiction angle very well, just because Gaston did not use sort of contemporary language, right? He stayed in the idiom. He committed to the bit, right? He committed to the idiom of the language, and it made it that really enhanced the storytelling and the delivery of the themes. So.
Yeah, his commitment to the bit would made him mommy Le Guin
agreed.
proud, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or Auntie.
We were not in Poughkeepsie. We were in Elfland
all the time.
So,
and it was deceptive depth as well, because what tickled my brain was historical fiction. As soon as the princess said her name, I went to Google. I'm like, okay, now I can, because I want to know what time frame this was. And of course, you could probably learn. Well, if you're a Catholic scholar, just from who's the subject matter of this, you probably could tell what time frame it was. But it took me to the princess and Googling the princess to find out it was after the Fourth Crusade. But the religious themes pop out because I know these are parables. These are a collection of parables. Like he goes on an adventure. He goes to this little pocket. He receives a moral. He goes to the next one. He learns another moral.
It's amazing. It's amazing how the second time you pronounce it differently with like while I simultaneously correct you. Because you definitely.
Yeah, I see.
You were just not going to be consistent. That's just.
Yeah. No, it's because I can predict it.
Thank you for predicting my needs. I appreciate it.
Yes, I was merely pretending to be competent. Well, Albert Magnus talks about this, but no, I the religious aspects are kind of when you're discussing this, we're actually pointing. Oh, he said this, and this reflects upon this parable, and in this situation reflects on his conversation with Father Rambaud and how he treats the fires and how he treats the mechanics and how he learns from this situation. The religious aspects actually grow more intense with discussion.
It's a good book club book actually. Like this would be a fun one, even to. Maybe not do the whole thing in one sitting like we did, but yeah, if you like know somebody into this, it'd be fun just to read like the first half. Talk through that because their conversations are pretty dense.
I don't know how you
because it's so short. Like I just want to finish it this far in.
It's
we just got to Constantinople. I want to see what happens.
You could literally. I mean, honestly, we could probably have just done this like a Library of Mass Destruction episode where we just read a chapter, discussed live, and it would have if it was a blind read, we wouldn't have understood all of the connections from the beginning. But it's short enough that you could realistically do that. So
you had to shill your Sonic OC.
Yeah. Actually, maybe this is the best format to do it. I think I might be wrong.
Yeah, you put that in there.
It is the ending changes so much of how you view it.
Yep.
Like
you really do need to.
Well, actually, I think a preferred matter if there was a sort of like a Gabe's grab bag where I interview Gaston.
Oh my God.
After reading this and discuss about it actually, and go in depth with the author himself.
To hear the audio quality on that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's Dr. Universalis.
I think this may have been one of our most serious episodes in a long time. We really didn't crack too wise on this one. I'm a little disappointed in myself.
Too earnest.
Listen, I am many things. But I would never blaspheme against the Lord.
Fair enough. Well, the next time we are going to also be covering a different book about Crusaders,
possibly,
which is going to be
maybe let's
which is going to be
more.
Way wilder.
Well, the next one is LARPing Crusader, so we can blaspheme away.
And it's going to be a lot of fun for everyone. It's about bros. It's about making bros. It's about It's about gatekeeping. It's about gatekeeping. It's about glowies. It's about broies and glowies. Of course, we're talking about John J. Stancliffe's Fed book. So,
friend of the show, one of our most hardened top tuggers. He's been tugging along. The foreskin is just
John J. Stancliffe. Poor John. His story. Well, I'll recount it then in that episode. But he got dealt a rough deal because he was a lit Renaissance guy, which we're gonna do some more stuff on that too, hopefully. And he came out at the wrong. Talk about the guy that showed up at like the wrong time of the party. Because he did not get the reception I think he deserved.
He got rug pulled in publicity sense.
So true.
Dr. Universalis. Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, I like to pose one final question, because we're all three of us are at least somewhat religiously inclined, or at least interest in religion and so forth. So do you think this works at all secularly,
for sure.
or no?
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah, I mean, they're morals.
I think if you're not like a fucking like new atheist era like 2010 shitlord, then you can like just see the construction of the story and the morality of the internal things, because it's not like it's ripped from the headlines sort of bullshit, right? Like these are
right, like a certain like a certain Jackalopian creature, if you will. But this is much more of a timeless. Listen, if you're a Jesus fan, or if you're a Europa Universalis 4 fan,
All right,
you will like.
Let's call it there. Yeah. If you listen this far, please do support your boys. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. It really does help feed the algo.
You sound so embarrassed to ask.
It's painful.
You sound so embarrassed.
We have plans.
Hey, I need you to hit the subscribe button and then hit the notification icon right next to it. Bam. Yeah. Hit the bell icon. It really helps us out with the algorithm
and all that.
Leave a comment in the bottom. Who's your favorite saint? I know mine.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Saint Jude Thaddeus. Saint Jude Thaddeus, actually. That's saint.
You would have been a great Wojak Soyjak dialogue writer.